Hey, Ken Behr here with the podcast One Step Over the Line. In today's episode, we're going to go step back to last week's episode where we interviewed Tommy Powell. And this is our second part of our interview. And this goes into how Tommy, in the 1974, put up $100,000 to finance what ended up becoming one of Fort Lauderdale's premier stereo stores, Sound Advice. Not only did Tommy put up $100,000 to help start the store and conceive it, he actually put up another $125,000 later on. So he put up basically what would be in today's dollars, almost $1 million to get Sound Advice started. And what happened to him and how he lost his investment, and they knew it was marijuana money. They knew it going in. Well, anyway, watch this part of the episode and you hear what Tommy has to say.
And it's because, there's different kind of people in the world that try to absolve themselves through their circumstances.
Sound Advice. They tried to wash their hands of their past.
Now, there you go. That's the topic I want to talk about.
All right.
The deal is there's different kind of cooperation with the government. There's a cooperation with the government to save your mother, your wife, and your family and shit like that. They're going to put them all in jail as conspirators. And
stuff. That's what happened to my co-defendant, my partner.
So I'm just trying to establish the difference of why and they go ahead and cooperate with the government and what is their ultimate objective. So that's why I get to Sound Advice, because, I put these guys in business in, I think, 1974. I loaned them $225,000
total.
Two different things, Yeah. And so these guys.
Hey, just so anybody needs to know, I've got the book right here, autographed.
And me too.
Hey.
But here's the deal. There was 4 principles. It's such a long story. It's a chapter in my book, but
I read it.
Suppose you read it.
I did twice.
They have some good questions for me, right? So I'm finished a load, and I went to my hometown, Detroit. I brought my reefer. I bought 40,000 pounds of reefer to Ann Arbor, and then I want to buy a stereo system for me and my partners. And I go to a place called Tech Hi-Fi in I think it was Birmingham or Royal Oak or Ferndale or something like that in Detroit, not Detroit, but Michigan.
Yeah.
And I went back and forth from the place across the street, Will Kramer and stuff like that. And then I ran into these guys, and they said they're going to give me the best deal fucking ever if I went no matter what. So I became friends with them, and they came up with these concept that they wanted me to finance them to do a Sound Advice in Fort Lauderdale. And
I have a question. Why did they want to go from Michigan to Fort Lauderdale? Because they knew the market was young and exploding. Because people were moving in, like, it was smart. People were filling Florida, moving from the north and Midwest to Florida. Florida was exploding in 1970s.
Good question, but I think they wanted the concept to get out of Michigan and go drink margaritas.
And be in the sun. I understand that too.
I went to 2 different stereo stores. I said, I'll buy this stereo, buy this stereo. I'm buying 3 different stereo systems for like $15,000.
Which just so people know, that's a shit ton of money. But back in
1974 or something like that. So I had this thing where I just finished doing a load, 40,000 pound load into Ann Arbor. So we all need a new stereo system, me and my 3 partners. And I go into a company called Tech Hi-Fi, and Joe Piccirilli is working there, and the other nefarious characters.
Didn't Joe Piccirilli didn't he used to do the commercials for him?
Yeah, he did the commercials. Now he's got a company called. He's He's worth $200 million now. Rosewater Energy.
I used to see him do all the commercials. Hey, it's Joe Piccarelli here for Sound Advice. Dark,
there you
kind of
go.
like olive skin, black hair.
So he's a big rat because he totally fucked me over all my entire life. And I like that you might do this podcast in South Florida because he might see it. Because he's the biggest piece of shit on the planet Earth. I mean, I'm going to explain to you now. I loaned them $225,000 to start Sound Advice. I had a verbal agreement with Joe Piccarelli that this was my retirement, and that's the only reason they're doing the deal. And then I give them the money, and this is going to be my retirement, and they're going to take care of me for the rest of life because they know I'm in an illegal business.
Right. We had no 401k. There's nothing,
It's a verbal agreement.
Exactly.
So there's Greg Sturgis. He lives in Idlewild Drive, and
Fort Lauderdale.
He's got a $6 million house on Idlewild Drive. Joe Piccarelli, he lives in Plantation, or he's got his business in Plantation, but he lives on Idlewild Drive, and he's got another $6 million house. Peter Bashuri, who's the biggest piece of shit on the planet Earth, has his mugshot all over fucking the internet for cooking the books at Sound Advice, And then we got Mark Phillips. He's in High Point, North Carolina, and he was kind of, they're all guilty. It doesn't make any difference. And all of those guys, I put them in business. They ratted on me and denied the verbal agreements that we had, okay? I mean, to me, in my business, what I was in, a verbal agreement is your fucking life's fucking way you have to do business because you can't do it any other way.
Right. You and I grew up on a handshake.
Trust.
Well, a handshake is everything. You have to look somebody in the eye. And by the way, it goes back to what we said earlier about the cowboy way. You don't lie, you don't steal, you don't touch another man's woman, you don't steal another man's horse, and your word is your bond. I believe if you give your word, you give your word. All four of those guys should be each sending you should be getting $40,000 a month from them, $10,000 each at least to cover your living expenses. Right? It wouldn't change their lives.
For some reason, I don't think they're going to do that.
I have a funny feeling.
They have a mindset that you and me probably can't understand. We believe that if you help somebody out, they're going to help you out in the future. Every time I loaned money to people and did business with people, and they said, oh, well, thank you very much, and now we paid you back. But I always said, man, you paid me back, but you have to do the same thing for me in the future. And then nobody does that.
No.
They think when they're fucking paying you back, man, and Sound Advice never fucking paid me back. I paid them $250,000 and they never, you know what? I got out of prison and I went over to bang on their fucking doors on Idlewild Drive. They're all living in $6 million houses, excuse me. They're all living in $6 million houses and they tell me to fuck off. They gave me 10 grand. Joe Piccarelli is sitting on like $2 million.
You said
$200 million.
Remember, the mob, I'm not saying about Joe, because I don't know Joe's, but the mob has a philosophy. It's called family first. You take care of your family first. Everybody else doesn't matter. So, and I've learned that the hard way.
That means you have to rip off the fucking Irishman.
Well, exactly.
Okay, I got it.
So that's where you come in.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. But you know what? They're not you. You're remember, they're a dime a dozen. You're a once in a lifetime kind of guy.
But how do you live with that shit? And that's
I don't know
that's the only reason why I'm doing this, because I want these guys to understand that in 1973, I put them in business with $225,000. They ratted on me and told me that, all the time while I was doing business with them, that this is the only reason I want to invest in the company is because it's going to be my retirement.
Right. But the thing is, what it sounds like is by ratting on you, they got rid of you and kept the company. I read the book.
Exactly.
They actually took the government took the stock you had, and then they sold it back to them for a nickel on the dollar.
That was a deal they made with the government during their agreement to testify against me right there.
Right. So you incentivized them to turn you in. Not willingly, but in the end, that's what happened.
Well, the government incentivized.
Right. But I mean, exactly. Yeah. I can't imagine how those four guys can't sit there and go, we owe that guy something.
There you go. That's the concept. I really gotta piss every once in a while. I want to go piss on all their graves and hope to God that I live longer than they do. Or whether they could be a rational type of person and say, man, we fucked you over so bad, we'd like to help you out. And that you might call that blackmail or whatever you want to call it. What I call it is fucking karma. I put them in fucking business and they generated millions of dollars and gave me fucking nothing. I never got anything for the stock money that I paid to them, that $225,000. Except $10,000 when I got out of prison.
Yeah, if they just gave you, listen, if they just gave, I have a guy that I lent money to, and he's owed me the money for 20 or 30 years, and I'm still friends with him, and he always says, when I make it big, he's an elephant chaser. And by the way, he got out of prison. I dropped him off in prison the day I dropped him off. He owed me money, and he always says, when I make it big, I'm going to give you my American Express card. You're just going to live on that and guess what? He's made and lost a few more fortunes. I've never seen a dime. He bought me a half a hamburger once.
It's full of shit.
Yeah. Then he asked me to help him fix his Mercedes, and I'm still friends with him, but I'm like, hey dude, you just give me back the 15 grand like that I lent you 20 years ago.
Just how tolerant do you have to be?
You gotta be. Because if you don't, you'd hang yourself.
I get to the point where if I run into them, I'm not tolerant, and I give them a bunch of shit, because they're assholes.
Well, I mean, it's a shame that they can't just, like I said, say, hey, you know what?
No, that's the deal right there. You got it right there. It's a shame they can't be fucking human beings and be considerate of how they got fucking into their life in the first place.
Right.
That's what sound advice right there.
Yeah, I'd like
right there,
let each of them, let each of them wake up and go get a cup of coffee in the morning and walk through their $6 million house and look around and say, you know what? If it wasn't for Tommy, we wouldn't have this, and we should take care of him. Wouldn't it be
nice? Obviously, don't have that. They don't have that concept in their mind.
I guess not. I would.
Fucking thieves.
I would. Like, look.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about right now. When you said I would, that means to me that there's different degrees of cooperation with the government.
Right.
Okay, you're a good dude, and you would try to help somebody that you fucking ratted on. Okay. That's
I would in a heartbeat. I mean, the truth is that most of the people I ratted on, I didn't know. But if I knew somebody, I would do whatever I could. I'd certainly, try to, like I said, the fact that my ex-co-defendant, who was my best friend from high school, found me after 32 years and was like, dude, come up here. We were best friends. And I don't hold anything against him. I knew, what choice did he have? You have the cops handcuffed you on the bed, on your couch with your kids screaming and your wife in handcuffs and your mother. The government, you think that's a little heavy-handed for a guy that's moving weed? But they don't care because they want another notch. They wanted Ken Behr. They wanted the Florida connection. They wanted anybody. They turned in, but Tommy, when the ship is sinking, the rats come out. And I'm not saying I wasn't one of them,
Yeah, but your situation is kind of different, man, because you've gone ahead. And I don't know many people like you, what you've done, and confessing that you cooperated with the government and you're trying to
Right.
make things better and shit like that. That's
I'm
really
telling the
cool.
truth.
So I don't find that with any of the snitches that I know.
Well, you know what a kid once told me, the truth will set you free.
Oh yeah,
It's
of
an old
course.
adage, and I still live in my past, but the truth, I just can't lie. I'm telling that people have called me. You know how many people, the people on the, like we talked about, oh, this guy's full of shit. Why would I lie about this? Like,
There's no reason. I'm 77, and I get these people on fucking Matt Cox's fucking website that give all these comments and shit
Yeah.
like that. When I went on Matt Cox, it was like, hey, dude, tell me every fucking thing. Smuggling marijuana has been going on forever, all over the world, every day.
Yep.
And how it got to America came through Mexico, probably.
Yep. Originally, for sure. Those little bricks of nasty stems and seeds, those little kilos of weed from Mexico.
That's why I started in 1970.
Yeah.
I was starting bringing kilos of Mexican. And
Can
then
I
I
tell you
brought it
something?
to Ann Arbor, and
Yeah.
Ann Arbor is the distribution capital of the United States at the time. Then I brought the Jamaicans, and then I brought the Colombians into Ann Arbor, and it became the center.
I'll tell you something funny. I was talking to Donnie Steinberg the other day, and he did the same thing. He started smuggling 100 pounds, 50 pounds from the Mexican border using boats across the Rio Grande, and he got into.
What year was that?
I don't know, but it was the 70s.
I always have to.
I agree. You and I'm the same, because you and I were there. We know the year changes everything.
I kind of figured that in 1972, nobody else brought 16,000 pounds.
No, he was not in Colombia in 72. No. I'm here to testify, open video, whatever. I don't know anybody that smuggled weed out of Colombia in 72. It would be everybody I know was later than that, because like you even talk about Robert Platshorn and the Black Tuna Gang. They were right from those guys were right from my town. Much of the guys that worked for him grew up in Hollywood, were part of our,
their Colombian supplier, Rafael Davila, was a very good friend of mine. And when I went to Colombia the first time, I hired him to find me the reefer. He couldn't do it. He had to turn me on to somebody else.
Yeah, but Robert didn't go down to Colombia until later than that. I remember when he was being in the newspaper. I don't think he was there that earlier than you.
No, he was not there earlier than me, but he came along later on.
Yeah.
And hooked up with
Rafael
Davila.
Yeah, he came in.
Rafael Davila couldn't get together the 20,000 pound that I wanted. And we went all over up in the Guajira, all through the mountains and everything. He couldn't get together. He finally decided that this one farmer could make it happen, and his name was Guillermo Avila. That's the guy that started the Colombian marijuana.
He's the one. How many acres did he have? Or he just put together a conglomerate?
He didn't have any acres or anything like that, but he was like this slim, skinny guy, fucking badass. And he'd go up in the mountains every day and walk around and do coffee. But then he would also deal with the marijuana people. And because nobody up there was doing marijuana, he would run into some people that were doing just a little bit of it.
Right.
And he told me that he couldn't give me any more than 16,000 pounds of marijuana.
That's a lot back then. Listen, when I was in Jamaica in 70, I want to say 77, 77, 76, 77, I think. You couldn't, There was no big farms like that. I mean, most of it, I lived up in the Grill, so that was more Orange Hill and the high end weed of, the Lamb's Breath is
Yeah,
just,
but around that time, there was 40,000 pounds loads coming out of Jamaica because
but
Mike Knight would be doing that.
yeah, but that would have been maybe down in Kingston or something, but not in the Grill,
No,
which are,
it was Nacho Rios and the Grill.
well, but like I lived in the Grill. I never saw those kind of loads. The loads we were seeing were smaller. Most of it was sailboats and planes, but I know there weren't big farms, but there were people that correlated all the farmers together. And the Lamb's Breath, I know that's a strain, but you know what a Jamaican once told me? He goes, you know why they called it Lamb's Breath? And he used, I used that Jamaican, yaman. You know what? It's because it's sweet like the breath of a baby lamb. It's not that, I don't think it's like people think, oh, it's a seed. I don't think it's a seed as much as people that knew how to grow good weed. And if it was really good, they called it Lamb's Breath. And if it was shit, it was more like Jamaican, Mexican, but for us, by the time I started smuggling weed in the late 77, you couldn't sell. If you didn't smuggle in, this. If you didn't bring in Colombian, I couldn't sell it. If you had Jamaican or Mexican, I couldn't sell it.
That's the whole concept with my life. You're wise. I was in Colombia in 1971. I brought my first load out in 1972, 16,000 pounds. So if anybody can disavow my work, I'd like to hear about it.
Listen, I don't think anybody can. I think you've, listen, again, you put it in a book. It's right here. Anybody that wants to read the true stories of Tommy Powell. Yeah.
Oh, no bullshit. And all you assholes that want to write negative reviews, do your research. Don't be a fucking idiot.
Right? Like listen. But
they must be like 20 years old and don't fucking understand. I'm 77 and I've lived a lifetime they're never going to fucking understand.
Well, here's the thing. I hate to break the news to the viewers, but what most people that put on podcasts know, and when I won't mention all I've been on 14 different podcasts probably.
Yeah, I know that.
We all know that the keyboard warriors are usually 45-year-old men living in their mom's basement.
Jacking off probably.
Well, let's hope, because what else are you doing down there? But there are people that'll come on and make comments, and they're intelligent. I've had people argue with those comments.
Yeah, that's the real cool thing about it.
Yeah.
You get 50-50. You got the fucking idiots that don't know what the fuck's going on. They're either too young or they don't even do any research or anything like that.
No research.
And just say, hey, he's a fucking liar.
Right.
I love that one right there. He's a fucking liar.
All the time.
It shows me that's the biggest fucking idiot on the planet.
Well, right, because if you all you have to do is do some research, that we're not lying. We're just telling the stories as we listen. For both of us.
Research? Do you think they know how to research?
Listen, in my own book, in the book that I wrote, I did 100 hours of research because I wanted to make sure for both of us.
Lifetime of research.
Well, like I said, but for both of us, it's been 5 decades. It's 2025. I started this in 1974. So it's been 5 decades. I've written down notes. I've made notes. I've had letters from prison that I've researched, but you got to know that we're doing the best we are through memory and through notes and through communicating with each other to tell the stories as truthfully as we can. I never lie about anything.
Nobody believes the truth no matter what anyways.
Well, there was a bunch of people that I think know that if watching this tape that you and I are sincerely telling the stories as we know them and with high end of integrity.
I'll give you 75% on that.
Well, I don't think, you mean 75% of the people believe us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a percentage of people that don't want to admit that. At the end of my book, I say, show me somebody without skeletons in their closet, and I'll show you a liar or a life unlived. And I'm 100% sure that the people that make those comments are either liars or have a life that's unlived. if everybody has a
There
skeleton
you
in
go.
their
A
closet.
life that's unlived. They don't know fucking anything. But I'd like somebody to confront me to my face and tell me I'm a fucking liar.
Well, that's, it's easy to hide behind a keyboard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what we'll
But they
do one.
they won't deal with that, because they're kind of like an egotistical person that thinks they know all the shit that's happening to them, and they don't understand history whatsoever.
No, I agree with that. And, our stories are pretty well documented. I mean, and even if you don't believe, how is it that you and me, and if you read Randy Lanier's book, if you read anybody's, 99% of the stuff is pretty much along the, we're telling the same story. We were there. And Roger Reeves, if you ever read his book, a phenomenal book, he was a big time smuggler, and he was there with, in the beginning of the marijuana from Mexico and then cocaine. And I listened to 24 hours of Roger's book. He's telling the truth. He was there. You can't fool you and me,
I kind of always have a problem with the cocaine and the marijuana shit because I never did any cocaine. I didn't ever want to do any cocaine.
No, I understand.
The marijuana
But
we know how helpful it is.
But you were in and out before the cocaine really hit in the mid 80s. Yep. Yeah. So was Donnie, and so was
out. What it did is put me out.
What's that?
Cocaine put me out.
Put you out of what? Put you out of a bad night?
Put me out of business.
Oh, why? Because why do you say that?
Because all my dealers and my friends and smugglers would start going to smuggling cocaine.
Yeah.
Because it was an easier deal to do, and they thought it was cooler,
Well, one of the problems is when they started putting up Big Bertha and the customs and the big money into drug interdiction.
82 or something.
Yeah. Well, what happened there was I made more money per pound when they started doing that because it took out all the dummies. And now you had a market the marijuana market didn't shrink, but the supply shrunk. So now instead of selling it for $240 or $245 a pound, or buying it for that and selling it for $5 more, I was able to move.
How much did you buy your reefer for?
In Florida, for 1,000 pounds, I pay between $240 and $245 a pound.
You paid that I used to pay $6 a pound.
Yeah, but you're in Colombia. I got to pay the transportation fees.
Oh shit!
But I'm going to tell you something. There was so much reefer.
I sell in Ann Arbor for $240 or $250.
Well, again, a little later, that was by the time there was so much demand, so much marijuana in South Florida that if someone offered me 1,000 pounds for $240, the most I could possibly sell it for is $245. I can make $5 a pound to be in the deal. Now that might sound like crazy money. $5 is only $5,000, but if you're a 25-year-old kid and that's like making 20,000 today or 15,000.
Definitely, I understand, dude.
Yeah, but when I was at the end of the cocaine thing, when we smuggled in 300 kilos of cocaine in 1985, the price was
the money there,
$10,000 a kilo.
Yeah.
And the most I could sell it for is 11. And I'm on the runway. I'm paying 10. The most I could sell it for is 11. Now, if I move it out of state, you can get more. Just like I moved the weed to Ohio, where I'd get $40 a pound more, I'd get $285. My partner was selling it. Listen, my partner in Ohio was breaking it down, and I was fronting it to him. So he could have probably got it for less, but we were partners. He had to cut me in for a bigger chunk to keep me in the game. He wasn't going to come to Florida and get the weed. He was just figuring, we're partners. I'm supplying it. I'm going to charge him this, and he's going to sell it for whatever after that.
Yeah. Can you imagine getting it for $6 in Columbia and selling it in Ann Arbor for $240 a pound?
It's a little bit of a profit, Tommy.
That's the way it was.
Oh, I know. But even in Colombia, I know other people were spending more money. And later in the game, the weed prices.
They went to 12 to 25 to 50.
Right, and 100.
But my connections, was like, hey, you motherfuckers, I put you in business. I'm staying with the price that I got. I never paid more than $12 a pound on all
And
my
that's
loads.
super cheap because I know people, like you said, were paying 50, even 100 or whatever to get the best of the
Because
best.
they were idiots. They didn't. They
Well, they
came
made
down later.
well, it's not that they're idiots. It's just that, whoever the first guy in the door gets the best deal, so to speak,
And as long as he keeps the best deal going.
You did good like that. I can't argue that, Listen, let's, we did an hour and 41 minutes and 41 seconds. So that seems to me that it's been a great interview. I thought I was interviewing you. You interviewed me.
I want to interview you because I'll go into this a little further right now.
Go ahead.
It's because of the sound advice people. There's snitches and there's snitches. You are an honorable snitch because you came out of your situation, you absolved yourself, and tried to make things work with the people that you snitched on. I think.
Well, listen, all I can tell you is, you put your story out there, and I think, people should understand that those of us that are willing to tell our story, we have no reason to lie. The story is the story, and
Shit, no.
I mean, anyway,
They can lie.
Well, they have lied,
Oh, listen, they got investigated by the SEC about 3 times, and then Peter Bashiri got a mugshot on him for stealing his state taxes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
These guys
the Department of Revenue.
like real pieces of shit.
Hey, don't mess with the Department of Revenue. They'll put your ass in jail. That's what he did. He didn't pay the sales tax.
Yeah, they got him for
That's
that.
what it was.
And then Joe Piccirilli, who was the guy I made the deal with, told me that I wouldn't have to worry about my retirement anymore when I got to be an old motherfucker like I am now.
Yeah.
He said, we'll take care of that. You don't have to worry about it. That's what convinced me to do the deal because I knew what I was doing.
Right. We all know there's a life expectancy.
They knew what I was doing and shit like that. And they used that against me.
I know. I hate to say it, but I'll repeat myself. Because of the deal you had, it incentivized them to rat you out, take your stock, and see you go to jail so they didn't have to pay you.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. We'll do it again. I enjoyed the hell out of this. Brother, we're going to get you down here in the studio, and you and me are going to riff for a couple hours. We get Bob in here. We'll have some fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I appreciate you, Tommy, and we'll keep it, we'll keep it going, man. It was a great show.
Yeah, I appreciate your situation, man, because I compare you to the guys in Sound Advice. There's a totally 100% difference there. You've tried to come clean, and not anybody in your situation would want to come clean. That's what surprises me about you.
Well,
and that's a good job.
So we're checking out. Tommy, all the love, man. It was a great time with you, as it always is.